Hey everyone, old school Pokemon here, back again with podcast episode number 18. Yeah, 18. Yeah, joined by my usual co-host, Catch 'em All Collectibles, Dan. And tonight we have a special guest, Isle Collectibles, Edison. How are you guys doing tonight?
Excellent.
I'm doing well. I'm excited to finally talk about the questions and the episode.
Oh, we're happy. We're happy to have you on. Glad to have you join us this week.
Appreciate it.
So, guess we'll hop right into the questions to begin with.
Yeah, so first question comes from Pokey Martin, and it's an interesting one that I've kind of thought on. So getting subgrades with CGC or BGS, how does that affect the grade? I feel like if you go with subs and they see the 6 on surface, then you get the 7. But if there's no subs, they might give you the 7.5 overall. One thing that I've kind of wondered and struggled with is how much CGC is charging for subgrades. It almost makes me feel like you're not just paying for the ink. Like, what else is going on there? Because, like, here's a card I have here with subgrades. This one wasn't a bulk submission, but as it stands, bulk is $15 a card. Subgrades are $10. That's 40% of the grading price of the $25 grading price combined for for 2 lines of ink, right? The 4 subgrades and then what they are. It feels as if they're charging way more than they should be for a little bit of ink. So is it an entirely different service? If you don't pay for it, are they grading more on like a PSA scale where they're not individually determining a numerical grade for each subgrade? I don't have the answer to that. I don't know what they would say. I don't know if anyone's ever asked them that, but to me, it just feels like they're charging way too much for a bit of ink. So I'm kind of concerned it might be a different grading scale entirely.
There is I do agree with you there. I think subgrades are way too expensive, but there is a bit more that goes into it aside from a little bit of ink. They gotta enter all the subgrades into the system, which I can't see that taking much time either. So I don't agree with the fact subgrades are that expensive. I think one of the main draws of CGC is being able to have subgrades similar to BGS, and I think they should almost be a lot cheaper or included in the price of grading, and not have that price be $25 a card or whatever it is right now. But I've also always wondered that whether if you get a card graded with subgrades, if they're grading it harsher than a card that you get graded without subgrades. And I find it hard to believe that they use the exact same scale for grading with subgrades versus grading without subgrades. Just because, Pokey Martin said in the question, if you do see that 6 on surface, you'd probably wouldn't get a 7.5 overall, just in that example. But if you didn't go with the subgrades, then that grader might be a little bit more lenient. I personally think that's probably how it works, but I don't think we'll ever actually know the answer to that. I think that'd be pretty detrimental to BGS or CGC's business if they came out and said, "Oh yeah, we use a different grading scale for subgrades versus no subgrades." I think they'd always admit that, yeah, follows the same grading scale, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But that's what I think on that question. You have anything to add, Edison?
Yeah, you Dan and you both kind of mentioned like the price of subgrades, and I want to make sure that we're aware that we bring up too that like BGS pricing makes absolutely no sense at these tiers. Like if you submit, I think their tier right now is $120, $130 is the BGS, the cheapest tier open for no subgrades. If you want to send that same card with subgrades, it costs $260. So
They're
Jesus.
doubling it.
they're literally doubling the price to grade, and not just doubling. It somehow costs $130 more. $120 more for them to write the numbers that are correlated to the card. It's
So
I mean,
I guess at least at CGC, it's a flat 10, whether
Yeah.
you're getting bulk or the highest tier.
yeah.
But with BGS, I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
And
I didn't know
that's
that either.
because I recently did a BGS submission and I got back some cards, and like one of them was a Grand Party and it graded well, but I kept getting comments from people when I posted pictures of it or talked to people about it, like, oh, why didn't you get subgrades? And I obviously didn't know what I was going to grade, but like, I'm not going to drop double the price of what it cost me to grade the card to get the subgrades on it. And that's, I don't know, that's crazy to me. Just to I can't rationalize how that price came about at the BGS discussion board.
I don't know how anything comes about at their discussion boards.
Because if they make an argument that we charge more because it takes longer for any reason, well, if it's taking longer, I mean, Nick did mention it's a little bit more data entry on top of the ink, but I don't think that would double the amount of time. I don't know. That's crazy, because if you're grading on the same scale, like this Alakazam has 9, 9, 8.5, 8.5.
Yeah.
Well, the grader would have to go over the card for all 4 aspects, keep track of all of them in their mind, and then put it through the algorithm in their head. So like, whether they're writing it down or not, like, they'd have to keep track of those things, still do all the same mental calculations to come up with the final 8.5, because like this one's a borderline 8.5. If one more of these was a 9, it would be a 9. And if corners or edges were a 7.5 instead of 8.5, then it would only be an 8. So yeah, I don't know. It's a really strange thing.
I think like one note that I agree with BGS on, and just how they do it, is if the card gets a 10, then they give it subgrades no matter what. And I'm kind of disappointed that CGC never adopted that, because it really just makes sense. Like, if you get a pristine 10, I would ideally like to know the subgrades, even if I submitted it without, because maybe that, I remember a big discussion in the past, like maybe that pristine 10 could be a perfect 10.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's obviously a huge deal. And like, you could submit a card to BGS, and we know people who submit cards to BGS, no subgrades, and they end up getting black labels.
Yeah.
And I understand like that a lot more, because subgrades do matter. But and the note for CGC, I think it's like you said, Dan, they still have to mentally note what they're grading each of the 4 criteria. But I also feel like if they're not writing it down, it creates like, this is like all like speculation and like pseudoscience, but maybe it's like, oh, there's no paper trail. Nobody can check me if this is right. So like, I rounded up half a grade, I rounded down half a grade. Who cares? Like, who's gonna question me on this card if there's no proof of it all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's everything for the first question. The next question comes from L Dubs. With this talk from Nat about opening a PSA office in New Jersey, do you know if PSA allows drop-offs at the office for grading? Also, I've been considering using Troll and Toad EVO, but wanted to know what you recommend as a. I guess we should split these two. So
Yeah.
I did have to Google this. PSA does own a property in New Jersey already, and just Google it. PSA drop off New Jersey, Woodbridge, New Jersey. I think I said it was.
Yeah.
Looks like it's probably due to COVID and all that. It's like appointment only. And I don't think right now they're only open for express and up, but it did mention something about certain values, certain minimum quantities. So I would just divert you to their website, and then I think they ask you to call and schedule an appointment or something. So that is an option apparently, though.
I just thought of this while you were answering the question. That office in New Jersey, is that actually for cards? Because I know they do have an office in New Jersey for autographs right now.
Maybe it's just the DNA stuff. The PSA DNA.
DNA. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. But the way that Nat made it sound in a recent podcast, I think eventually we were talking about this pre-recording, but like Edison mentioned, they do stuff in Japan right now. They're talking about a UK office at some point. I think the longer term goal is to actually grade cards as PSA in New Jersey as well.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to that part, Edison, or if you wanted to get to the next part of that question.
Nothing, but I pretty much have the same ideas like Nick. It's like they can have the office now. I'm just curious where they go in the future. If this is because if it's impossible for everything to be processed through just one location in California. That if they want to scale and they have all this money coming in, like it rationally, like they have to open up more locations, more facilities to process stuff. It's just that's where they have to go from here.
Yeah. So the next part of the question, kind of a completely different question. Also, I'd been considering using Troll and Toad EVO, but wanted to know what you recommend as a minimum inventory count before utilizing that service. How much did you guys send in when you first started using Troll and Toad EVO? Just trying to gauge at what inventory level from your experience does it become efficient to use EVO. So I've talked about EVO quite a bit. I'm kind of a very good free advertisement for them. This is not an ad, as none of them have been. When I started with EVO earlier this year, I had been in the hobby for 7 years, and I had a 6-figure backlog dollar-wise of stuff to send them. I still have like tens of thousands of cards to send them, many tens of thousands of dollars worth of like value to send to them. So for me, I literally went from like 0 to 100 within a month or two, selling through 5 figures worth. And to me, that was easily worth it. As far as like, what's the minimum? I don't really know, because I kind of blew through that really quickly. Trying to gauge. Yeah. To me, like if I had to guesstimate, I feel like it's a $20 a month fee, like to open up the account, and storage is like 1/3 of 1 cent per card. So the easier way to make that like feel, I think it's $33 for 10,000 cards. Like if you send them 10,000 singles, that would be $33 a month. So if you're sending them 10,000 singles, 33 plus the 20, you're at like $50 a month. To me, if you were selling $50 to $100 worth a month, that would be a lot of fees to be paying. I mean, more than half of your gross sales would be paying that monthly fee, on top of the fact that like every sale, similar to eBay, has a 15% fee or whatever it is, depending on the price bracket. So I would think you would want to be in the $1,000 plus a month range in sales. That would just be my estimate. I don't know. Edison's just recently getting into this. Nick's been doing it for a while with some modern stuff. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are.
You can
go
go
first,
first
Nick?
if you want.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I was mentioning to the before, like when we were talking before this, that I just sent out my first submission to EVO. And for reference to that was a lot smaller than, I mean, even I think the quantities that I think Dan has sent in the past, it was like 500 or so items for raw fulfillment. And that stuff like varies between maybe $1 for a single to maybe like $10-15 for a card. But for me, it was like just the convenience. And I mean, we'd spoken like kind of briefly about this too. It's like a way of almost monetizing stuff that I had lying around. That it was like these the coins, like the Pokemon coins, the jumbo cards. It was stuff that I just literally just had sitting in a box. I wasn't planning on selling it on my own eBay. I didn't have a great way to get rid of it. And to be like a couple hundred items that I was just sitting on, I might as well send it off to EVO. And even if it's not the best decision for me to personally sell this stuff, I'm not really focused on maximizing value, so to speak. It's almost like whatever they sell for. Once they're at Troll and Toad, that's their stuff, and they'll pay me out for them whenever.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any minimum amount that you have to send to Troll and Toad. But in order to make it worthwhile, you do want to keep in mind that depending upon what you send to Troll and Toad, your fees are going to range. Like low end bulk cards, they take 50%, and then as you get to higher value stuff, they take, I think they do like 20%, 15, 10. So it just depends upon what you're actually sending to them. And then like Dan was saying, you have to pay that monthly fee. You got to pay the fee per sale, the monthly storage fees. So you have a bunch of fees. So you want to make it worthwhile to yourself. So if you're sending, like for me personally, I do all modern bulk. So the vast majority of the stuff that I have listed on Troll and Toad are 20-cent singles. And in order to make that worthwhile for me in the slightest bit, you have to send a lot of cards off the bat to get started. So I started off with 5,000 cards, then I sent them another 5,000 and another 5,000, so on and so forth. But another thing to keep in mind is if you're kind of relying upon this Troll and Toad income, they do require you to have $250 in your account before they start issuing you payouts. So if you're expecting the money from these sales, they do have that threshold there. So if you're expecting the money from those sales, you want to send them a lot of stuff so that you can generate $250 a month. But if it's more so stuff that you're just sending them to kind of generate passive income over the course of time, then really doesn't matter in that case.
Yeah, that's a really good point to bring up, because if someone were to send $1 singles, and like say you just sent 400 $1 singles, well, at less than $1.09 sale price each, the fee is 50%. So your $400 worth of singles is only going to net you 200, which you can't even pay out.
Yep.
So like, not only do you need at least $500 worth if they're dollar singles just to get the payout. That's if you sell them all within 1 month. So like, make sure from that perspective, if it's a one-time thing and it's just a batch of stuff, it's probably not really for you. But if it's a recurring over time, if you're going to be kind of feeding it every few weeks or few months to just keep that up, because one thing that I found, I'm still shocked at the sheer volume of sales they do. Like, they chew up a lot of inventory. They sell a lot of cards. So yeah, I guess if you're going to be doing it, like I'm doing 5 figures a month, well, every month I've got to replenish that with 5 figures worth of new inventory to keep hitting that. And it really is a great service.
Kind of like what Dan had just said, like the idea of like refueling it. I think that's why I'm most excited. I would definitely say 500 items that I sent off is a pretty small submission to them, especially like starting out. But I mentioned like monetizing stuff that I just had lying around. It's like I'm excited because now I can actually look for more. I was dealing mostly with Japanese stuff for a while, but now I'm actually excited to go look for English stuff again, because I know like I could always send it down the road to Troll and Toad EVO. Like I'm kind of invigorated again to purchase English and search for collections, because I know now I have a way to move the inventory, move it in a way that's more convenient to me. And it very much is, I'm not relying on EVO to be the main source of income. And that's why I'm not really pressured per se to feel like I have to sell it and move it fast, because I didn't even know there was a minimum like payout requirement, but I guess it makes a lot of sense. So I guess in that regard, like make sure you kind of know how much you're sending. Again, I think it's good to get an estimate of like the value you expect before you just send off this stuff randomly. I think that would be important.
That was one thing that I was really looking forward to. Like you said, being able to buy different collections. Like my whole philosophy when I first started EVO was I'd be able to start buying these like mid-era to modern collections, and all the bulk, like for modern, like all the bulk V cards, I'd be able to send a Troll and Toad and all that. Which is a great system to be able to do that. I kind of changed paths a bit and took the hard road and sell all that stuff myself now. But it is a great opportunity to just be able to send all that kind of stuff to them, to have them deal with and sell for you.
I think we did a good job with that question.
I think so. I would say so.
Hopefully L Dubs will be happy.
Let us know, L Dubs, if you're happy with our answer or not. So my next question is from Obi-Bong Kenobi. What is a card or cards that you had as a kid that instantly bring you back to those memories of childhood? For me, it would be the Ancient Mew. Because I remember actually going to the movie, getting that card, wondering what the HP and the attack were on that little insert card. Me and my cousins actually just made complete random numbers up and made Ancient Mew the strongest Pokemon in history. So it would definitely be that one, and then it would be the Mewtwo Black Star promo number 14, because similar to going to the movie theaters to get the Ancient Mew, I remember when that movie released on VHS, I was begging my mom to bring me to Walmart that day to buy the movie, because I knew the card came with that movie and I really wanted that Mewtwo card. So I would say those two cards have the most sentimental value for me because of those reasons.
Yeah, for me, I guess mine's a bit more boring. The biggest three are like the big three from Base Unlimited. So I think I've mentioned this before on my channel, on the podcast somewhere. I have my childhood cards, and like the Venusaur, I just remember the kid on the bus who had it, and I spent the week planning out. I had a really long bus ride, so just like planning out, trying to work a trade deal throughout the week on the bus for his Venusaur, and eventually I got it. The Charizard that I have, I never pulled one back in the day from Base Unlimited, but Santa Claus got me one, my mom, on eBay. Actually, my eBay account, I have a couple that I use, but I forget if the main one I use is it, but one of them dates back a long ways and is like the original one that my mom created to buy Pokemon cards for me, to buy that Charizard that I could never pull, and I got it for Christmas. It was like, forget if it was 01. I was a little late to the game. Like Base Unlimited came out in 99, so I got mine towards the end of the hype, but I was still so hyped to get it. And then Blastoise was the one of the big three that I pulled myself. So like where I was when each of one of those cards came into my possession, I just go right back there when I see them in my binder. So those are my big three.
When I was I have very faint memories of buying cards as a kid, because I didn't really get them too often, because I was more so in the video games growing up. But I think the card that I have like the most fondness and like kind of makes me smile is the Typhlosion EX from Unseen Forces. And not because I ever had a copy, but because I really liked that card as a kid. And I remember, I forget what year this was, but I was super in, I couldn't get cards, like buying them from the store. So I would always be fascinated with the idea of making my own cards. So I'd watch a bunch of YouTube videos of people printing out, just printing out the card artwork from like their printer, cutting them out, pasting them on. And we didn't have a printer at home. So what I would do is I would find the images and then I would email them to my dad. And then he would have to print them out at his office on the work computer. And then I would have to wait every couple of days when he would get around to doing a printing to bring home these cards. And I can never make the Typhlosion EX look right. And I still have the last copy that I made. And I forget what website it was. It might be PokeGym, but it has like the logo of the website the scan is from on top of the card. Like it's, I don't know. That makes me just happy remembering like the time that cards are so inaccessible for me as a kid. Like even $1 for anything, it was insane. And it's, and I think that I really should circle back and get that card in English to kind of like fulfill that childhood want.
Yeah,
but, definitely.
Yeah, I forgot that happiness I had in me.
Speaking of having your dad, completely off topic here, but speaking of having your dad print stuff off at work, I was huge into Connects back in the day, and like the biggest Connects model they had was the roller coaster, and the box came with one instruction booklet to build like one model of the roller coaster, but then there were like 3 other versions that you could build using the same pieces. So I had my dad print those instructions off, and it was like a 400-page color document.
And that's how Nick got his dad fired.
Stealing company resources. Like, oh my God.
Oh, that's funny.
It felt like mystical at that point because like I just didn't know how emails worked. I didn't know how printing works. So, like I had to outsource all of that. I remember like even to play Club Penguin online games, I didn't have my own email. So I had to use my dad's email, and he could only access it from work. So I had to make times were a lot different than as a kid.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Crazy how far we've come.
It really is.
We were just talking about like how at this point you could do anything online that you want, like even signing up for like legal stuff, you just do it online, and how much the world has kind of progressed. That might have been around then too, just weren't aware of it as a kid. But I very much think the internet's come such a far away from what it was in like the early 2000s.
Oh, for sure.
So next question comes from Jake S. I've been absolutely obsessed with e-reader cards since getting back into the hobby. The mix of incredible art and the history of scanning tech all on a card is very appealing to me. My question is, are the print runs for those sets really as low as everyone says? And what was the cause of these lower print runs? The die down of the 1999 to 2000 craze, the odd look of the cards, Wizards closing shop, or all of the above? Anything else? Very interested in what both of your experiences are with Pokemon during this era. Thank you. Nobody knows, unfortunately, or at least the people who do aren't going to tell us. Wizards of the Coast, I'm sure some high executive there has data somewhere, like early Magic. They came out with what was printed for Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Arabian Nights, all those. Even I feel like at this point, 22 years later, if someone were to come out and say, hey, this is what we printed, I feel like no one would believe it. So unfortunately, I think we're never going to get the information. And I think the main factor was just, the fad died. I mean, it was huge in 99, 2000. I got out of it. I played the games through Sapphire, which I think brings you to like 2003. And that was later than most of my friends. I think most of my friends got done with Silver, Crystal, Gold. But like I stopped with the cards at Gym Series. I didn't even get into any of the Neo cards. So it just stopped being a thing for the most part. And that was the main contributing factor, I think. As far as estimating like how many, I think Base, Jungle, Fossil, Rocket are more than an order of magnitude print than any of the E-Series cards. Complete guess. So not worth anything, worth as much as you paid for it.
I would even say the Neo series are printed much more than the e-reader series. Because even like bulk collections that I've bought over the years, there's a ton of Base through Team Rocket. There's a decent amount of Gym through Neo, and then e-readers to find in a bulk collection are next to impossible. I've rarely come across bulk collections that had a ton of e-reader cards in them. So I do think the scarcity of those cards is genuine. I don't think it's just a case of one person having pallets upon pallets of these boxes sitting in a warehouse or anything like that. But as far as reasoning why, I think it's just what Jake S mentioned in his question, just kind of the all-time lows of the hobby. People starting to get out of the hobby at that time. Me personally, I never got into the video games. I've actually never played the video games growing up as a kid. As far as the cards go, I collected from base through fossil, and then I specifically remember Team Rocket coming out. And again, my mom took me to Walmart to get a pack, and I was not a fan of their dark Pokemon at all. So I got out of Pokemon the card game after with the release of Team Rocket. I didn't make it to the gym series like you did, Dan.
One way of phrasing it, I didn't make it to gym series considering the age of the set, and whereas I didn't make it that far along 25 years ago that it was.
Do you have anything else for that question?
It's in that, like, the specific time frame that he gave, 1999 to 2002. I mean, I would have tapped out that era at 2 years old. So I don't
collecting cards back then.
Sadly, no. I wasn't hustling as crazy at 2 years old. I should have. If only I knew the value of those cards, I could have been working hard. I could have been building my position. But I think my earliest experience is, maybe this is just in general, but I really have almost like the exact opposite of you, Nick. Like, I was only attached to the games, really. Like, I grew up playing the games. Like, that's everything I know about Pokemon comes from the games.
Wow. Okay.
And now it's kind of like circling back to where, like, I vaguely remember the cards as a kid and opening and seeing some sets, but I don't have too much to add. I remember mostly like the Diamond and Pearl to Platinum era stuff, going to like local stores and buying that. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm too young to really speak. That's also a weird statement, but yeah.
It's good to get different age ranges on here, get different perspectives, different experiences.
Well, I guess I should ask this question too with this. I mean, not even just this era, but I mean, obviously the years following it, maybe late 2000s, even into the teens. I'm guessing you were still seeing a lot more of the earlier WotC sets pop up in like local card shops for sale. Would you say that's the case? Like,
I remember I have one card shop that used to be into Pokemon. They've since got out of it. But I remember back when I initially got back into Pokemon in 2009, 2010, that shop still had plenty of WotC boxes, WotC hollows. They still had a ton of WotC era Pokemon just on the shelves. I remember buying Unlimited Jungle and base set 2 booster boxes for $150 a piece.
Yeah, I didn't get back in until 2014, unfortunately. But I mean, just like the other day, Mason went live, Cardinal Gaming. He was sorting out collection buys from the past week or two, and it was like Modern and WotC. There wasn't really much of the in-between stuff. They're printing, last year, they printed 3.7 billion cards. And in those first couple years, they printed, I think there was a time-stamped date, somewhere around 10 to 12 billion cards by 2002. And then there was like, I actually did a little bit of work over on E4. It's kind of like an unfinished article where I roughly estimated like per set how much was printed. There was so much estimation and guesswork that it's not really worth a ton. But Pokemon does, on an annual basis now, they publish how many cards they've printed. So when you know, like, hey, 6 sets or 4 sets came out this year, however many it is, and however you want to count, like the holiday mini sets, whatever. When you know that 3.7 billion cards were printed and you know what sets were in print, you can roughly allocate, like, okay, 3.7 billion, maybe 6 sets in print. That's 600 million cards per set. And you can kind of contextualize a little bit what some of these recent sets are getting. So it's a lot of cards today. It was a lot of cards back then. And then in between, e-reader included, it was a lot less than today and a lot less than 99. How much? Nobody knows.
I don't think we'll ever know.
No. But common question, because it's super interesting to think about, and it would be really cool to know.
I think what always surprised me is like a quick point, like with the e-reader stuff, is even for like the decline in the everyone kind of points to like the decline in the popularity of the card game and whatnot, but like it's not like they half-assed those sets either. I don't know if I'm on the curse, but I don't know if they didn't like they put a lot that probably, I mean, even now people consider that to have like some of the best artworks for the Gen 1 and 2 Pokemon. And I think that
They
is
were
true.
big sets too.
Yeah.
They were
Oh yeah, they were huge sets.
doing a lot of art. Well, tiny sets relative to today, but big sets
That is
for
true.
the time.
That is true.
Yeah. That's what always surprised me. Like somehow the card game was still waning, but they were still pumping out such quality work.
Yeah,
And, yeah.
definitely. So next question comes from Jason of J&J's. I've been picking up booster boxes from DBS. I was a big fan of the anime growing up, and with the TV series still thriving, I wondered what you guys think of the investability of DBS in general. I have my eyes on the signature cards from Tournament of Power and ASOS in particular. Thoughts? Well, Nick and I have been answering first. I'm going to pass this right over to Edison. I never watched Dragon Ball. I never bought any DBS. I have no idea.
This
is why we had you on, Edison.
Yeah.
For the record, I've watched very little Dragon Ball Z ever. I know very little about the anime, and what the stuff that I do know, I've taught myself for the past couple months just from because Dragon Ball Super is like the newer set. They had the older Dragon Ball stuff by Score from like the mid 2000s. I've been buying that stuff up because nostalgia, so to speak. But everyone I've talked to about Dragon Ball Super, I initially thought it was just like a hype thing or just people like how the cards look. But I've heard from a lot of people that the game itself is very playable. It's a very active community there. And I think in that regard, like it makes so much sense why the cards have these price tags that they have. It's the combination of a super playable card along with really nice artwork that, I mean, Pokemon's starting to get that with the VMAX, like the alternate arts where you have a combination of a very playable card, a good looking card that appeals to collectors and the players. And in that regard, like, it makes sense to me why Dragon Ball Super is worth something. I guess the fear is then if people are picking up Dragon Ball Super now because it's a playable set, that means you're kind of hinging on the set staying in play and having value because the cards can be used. So maybe you do see it dip. And that's the thing too. Like I don't know enough about the game to know like how their what do you call it? The format rotates, like what sets are legal, what sets aren't legal. I don't know enough to make like a concrete opinion, but that's kind of like how I feel. And I think like between Naruto and Dragon Ball, you probably have like the two most popular animes, like the two most popular mangas that have come over to the US. I just think it's like a super safe bet if you like the stuff to collect it, because I think there's going to always be people there that like that and want to collect them. Sorry for the rant.
Oh no, that's perfect for me because I'm similar to Dan. I never really watched Dragon Ball. I've never owned any of the cards, and I really don't know anything about it. So I'm just going to agree with everything that you said there.
We brought on our DBS expert.
Yes.
I was going to say the signature cards from like the Dragon Ball Super, it's similar to how Weiss Schwartz does the signature cards, I believe, where the actor goes in, they sign it with like an automated pen that then memorizes exactly how they sign it. Then it's imported to a computer, and then the signatures are just kind of embossed onto the cards themselves. And to me, those always just felt a little weird because that they're sold as signed cards. They're not really signed cards because you can obviously get the voice actors to sign them if you see them in person. And that way, like I don't really understand the value of the signature, just like an extra rarity level. But it's not. I don't know. I like a real signed card by like the artist or the voice actor. I think those are cool.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't consider those actual signatures. Just
it's manufactured
having them being printed like that.
Yeah.
Signature's got to be the old school with the Sharpie. Going to actually meet the person.
A ballpoint pen, like some of the old signatures I've seen.
There we go. Oh man. So my next question is from Matthew B. He asks, or Yeah, he asks. SM Pratt recently talked about his negative golden auction experience on his Patreon. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen that yet. And I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts on that experience. I did watch that video, and I was pretty shocked by how they I guess for context for people who haven't seen that. So SM Pratt purchased 3 or 4 lots from the Pokemon
Four.
Saves the World box break. 4 lots?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he purchased 4 lots from the Pokemon Saves the World box break. He wasn't able to attend the actual event, so he had the packs opened there, and then they shipped the packs to his house. And apparently, they shipped all of the cards. I think he said they were sleeved, but they were all kind of just thrown into a sandwich bag and sent off like that, really with no protection. And you're talking $10,000 per lot pack on these lots, so it's an expensive lot of cards that he got, and the packaging was just absolutely dismal. And I was pretty shocked to hear that was the case. You would think Golden Auctions would have would know to package their stuff better. I don't know what happened there, but I would have been pissed if that were me.
I think I'm going to have an unpopular, unexpected take, maybe. No harm, no foul.
I don't like it.
It didn't sound like the cards were damaged. I've received things packed extremely questionably, sometimes damaged, and then I return them or whatever. And I've received things packed terribly, and then somehow nothing happened, and it's just like life's too short. Move on. It's done and over. With Golden, it is surprising to see and hear about, but yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. he can not use Golden again. Anybody who's that, I mean, people are free to not buy from them. And I like to think that if somehow that package had been folded in half and his cards had been, I'm assuming they would have stood by it to some extent. And maybe they wouldn't have, though. And then it would have been more of a real thing. But no harm, no foul.
You just like to live life on the edge there.
He sounds like a shill almost, shouting out EVO all the time.
I wasn't paid by Golden to say that.
Just to make sure.
People need to start paying me.
I understand the idea of
get a Coke sponsorship.
Drink Coca-Cola.
I understand the idea of no harm, no foul, but to me, it's like, if I'm remembering it correctly, it's like they didn't even put effort into packing the stuff nicely. And I think, it's one thing, the fact that it's, between a reputable auction house, a large auction house, the fact that it's part of a charity event, like they could have put more effort into the packaging. And regardless, even if it was, half that value, if it was a tenth of that value, I think you could just do more. And it looks like a very lazy way to ship $10,000 worth of cards. Not even 10. It's what, $40,000 worth of cards.
40,000, yeah.
Yeah. That there was no consideration put into it. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's like they didn't even care. It's just like, you gave us your money, just take your stuff and leave us, and go.
And
I think
part of it too, I don't really know. I was there at the event. I opened my cards. I took possession of them and took them home. I don't know what involvement, maybe half of the people were there at the event to open their own cards, and then maybe half had them opened by content creators. And who was in charge of the shipping, packaging? I really don't know. And I don't like to get into drama and speculation and things of that nature either. I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know how they made their way from being opened on stage to getting to Scott's house in the condition they were. I don't know who dropped the ball and where and when and how. And That's part of the reason I have my take too.
I was gonna say, well, two things I was gonna say. First would be like what you were saying. We don't know how Golden actually packaged and mailed these packs to Scott. It could have been a situation where the people from Golden mailed them right from their hotel room in Vegas, and they really didn't have adequate packaging materials there. Um, I would hope that's the case versus them bringing the packs back to their mailing facility, whatever it is, and just doing a lazy job with packaging at that point.
And I know, like, had I not gone, like, I bought 2 sets of packs at the auction, and Nick and I went in on them 50-50. We each opened one and we took our own cards. Had I not gone, I would have had Nick opening both. And what I would have done, and I'm not saying Scott did anything wrong or whatever, but like what I would have attempted to do if they would have allowed me, I would have said, hey, Nick is opening my cards. And then I would have counted on Nick to like, hey, Nick, send to PSA the ones that make sense to go to PSA and then take the rest home and ship them to me. Was that an option? I have no idea. But like, if I could have done that, I would have done that. And again, that's not to say Scott's wrong, and that's not to like, but again, I know almost nothing about it. So I just don't really, no harm, no foul. That's open and close there.
The other
Oh, you go.
the other thing I was going to mention is just like in general, like packaging and mailing stuff in general. I think it looks bad upon the seller to package stuff like that from like a business perspective. I've always been under the assumption that I want my even like so like if I sell a PSA graded card, I put it in a Rusty was talking about this in one of his videos, and I completely agreed. So you sell a PSA graded card, you put it in one of those graded card sleeves. Instead of like sealing the sleeve like loosely, where like the card can like move around and jiggle inside the actual sleeve, you gotta put those sleeves on tightly so they look nice. They don't jiggle around or whatever. That's one of my biggest pet peeves right there. Is just like getting packages that don't look nice. I cannot stand the way you packaged those Machamp and Staryus.
No, I have like 20,000 of the cheap old baggy ones, and I'm using them until they're gone.
I got that package from you and I burned your business card because I'm never going to purchase from you again.
Oh man.
I'm right with Nick there though. Like, I think how you package stuff is a pretty important part. I'm not saying your bags are wrong. I think the fact that you even throw them in a bag is fine enough for cards generally. But I mean, we're not talking about cheap stuff. We're not talking about like a small one-off auction. Like, this is not some random mom and pop, pop-up store. Like, they knew, I think, going into the event what they were doing, that they knew the value of the packs, what they'd sold for. And I'm not going to blame the shipping department at Golden. I'm not going to blame like the low-level employees. But I really think if you're organizing this big event, this charity event, it's supposed to be a big deal with big news in the hobby or for Pokemon, you could take more steps to present the stuff better. And I think I'm almost like a theatrical person. Like, what if they did envelopes that just said like, here are your cards from the submission, and threw that in a bubble mailer? That would still present a lot nicer. And just because if I'm not mistaken, everything was just kind of loose in a bag at the bottom of the bubble mailer, right?
That's what he made it sound like. Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It would just rub me the wrong way to spend that much money. And to feel like they didn't, as I said, effort. I think effort goes a long way just to make people want to come back and shop with you again. If you package your stuff well, I think that's a big part of it.
One thing that it's been a long time since I've had the issue, but like when I sell a card, if it's over like $1,000 lately, I'll put it into a small flat rate box. Mm-hmm. But if it's under $1,000, where are they? I use like a 00 padded envelope.
I have them right here. I use the same.
I use a quad zero padded envelope though that it goes into first, and then it goes into the double zero. So it's double padded envelope, and that's it. If it's between 500 and 1,000, I've got them right here too. I have like a cardboard sheet that I just wrap the slab around, and then it goes into the bubble mailer. But if it's like $400, it's literally the slab in 2 bubble mailers, and I've had people receive them. Oh my God, I spent $300 on a card, and you sent it in 2 10-cent bubble mailers. And I'm like, oh, very sorry. Can you send a picture of the damage? Did it get cracked? Oh, it's perfectly fine.
Yep.
No harm, no foul.
No, I think I do the same thing. I do $500 and above. I'll put it in a box. But below 500, everything goes bubble mailer, and I think that's fine.
But
Just
some
tossing
people out
tossing
there,
something
like,
in a bag and mailing it in a bubble mailer like that, though,
I'm
I
kind
think
of
that's a little
taking
bit
it,
different.
I'm taking it to the extreme to an extent, but like I've had people very mad at me for not doing more when nothing bad happened. And it's like, hey, look, had it been cracked, had it broken, I've shipped several thousand of these this way.
Yeah.
And I've had like 1 or 2 issues. And I'm pretty sure both times the truck ran over the card.
Yeah.
And it would have broken a box too. It's like your $400 card, I would fully refund you and take the cracked slab back. But it didn't break. You're getting into a big thing over it, and you're getting all, and that's where, yeah, I don't know. I knew not many people would respond the way that I did. And had I received it, it would have been like, wow, I can't believe they did this. All the cards look fine. I probably would have talked about it on my podcast. I would have talked about it somewhere. I would have sent a message in, but that would be the end of it. Like I wouldn't, but now this happened to him. We're talking about it on our podcast. It's I don't know. It feels like a lot over nothing, or a lot over a little.
But you mentioned that someone like sent a message about that for a $400 card, and it honestly seems like you packaged that $400 card better than these loose packs were packaged. But just like I rationalized as like he actually essentially spent 100 times that, like 40,000, and got no improvement in quality of service.
So I own 4 Pikachu number ones. For not number ones. 4 Pikachu 1 through 4. You wouldn't believe how I received some of those.
But I guess the flip is, if you ever were to sell them, how would you package them?
Those cards? Oh, if and when I sell a $40,000 card, it's double bubble mailer with this into a small flat rate box, into a medium flat rate box,
overnighted,
registered mail, or overnight.
Yeah.
But again, like if I do double bubble mailer and just send it and it gets there fine, I don't think
you're gonna have a pissed off customer.
I don't think they should be, though. Like I literally, when I bought a number 2 Pikachu, they overnighted it via UPS, and like these flat rate envelopes, it was the UPS equivalent of this, and it was a number 2 trophy Pikachu in a top loader in this huge thing.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And it was folded in half.
But just to say it didn't get damaged, just because no harm, no foul.
It didn't get damaged, and it got graded a PSA 9. And I didn't bring it up with the person I bought it from. It was like, had it came and been bent, it would have been a huge, massive, monumental thing, and I would have gotten all or a lot of my money back. No harm, no foul. It's in my collection as a PSA 9 today. I've never told that story. I didn't take a picture. I didn't send it to anybody. And it was like, it could have been bad. I think I
bet your heart dropped when you saw that.
I have the envelope somewhere because I kept it.
But to be fair, it still stands out to you as a time where someone didn't do a good job packaging. Like that's how you remember it. And I think that's how
I haven't thought about it in a long time, and I honestly like this made me think of it because it's like an analogous situation. But
And now because of that, you're gonna have to go to therapy because
now I'm gonna have
something didn't
nightmares
package
again
correctly.
tonight. PTSD is gonna kick back in.
You're gonna have nightmares.
Yeah.
Well, I would say we thoroughly answered that question.
It's a good discussion.
So our next question came from Kai, a regular, Kai O. I'm thinking of buying tons of really nice mint cheap hollows such as Tag Team, Shiny Star, ETC, and the cheap VMAXs and alt arts, less than $1 each, and CGC grading them. Just got back a heap of Tag Team hollows that are CGC 9.5s and 10s, and they are stunning for 18 a pop. Can you discuss the feasibility of this play? It was a lengthier chat, and actually earlier on in the question, he talked about like expressing, like a lot of cards have been surprising to me. A lot of cards have been expressed through PSA from like celebrations. So he was kind of talking about paying 150 a card, grading some of these cheap modern things from celebrations, and then kind of contrasting that with grading the cheap stuff through CGC. And I think both of them are feasible. I mean, people are clearly doing both of them to some extent. I like the CGC play a lot more just because the paying $15 to grade a $1 card feels a lot better than paying $150 to grade it. Your risk is lower, but I guess the potential reward too. I mean, people who express through those first couple Charizards that got over $1,000 a piece. I don't know what the nines were getting, but like Celebrations Charizard was 100 or a couple $100 raw out of the gate. You pay $150 to grade it, and then you get over 1,000. In hindsight, that was a good. In hindsight, that was a good play.
Selling the nines on Facebook for like $500-$600.
In hindsight, then that was a very good play. It's just not one. I feel dirty paying PSA $150, especially on a single that should be double or single digits in price. I just can't bring myself to do it. So personally, I like the cheap CGC play a lot better. Grading 9.5s and 10s, you're doing better than I am because I chucked out a lot of cards. Like I mentioned this in my most recent PSA return, and Edison actually has a good one too about how CGC grading with them feels bad. I chucked out cards to PSA, like very little pre-grading, if any, 9s and 10s, occasional 8. I chucked out cards similarly to CGC, and it's like 8s and 8.5s, the occasional 9, extremely few 9.5s, no 10s. It does not
once
feel,
in a blue moon, you get a 10.
Yeah, it does not feel great. So if you've got the eyes and if you're capable of like hitting high 9.5s and 10 rates, then it's an amazing play. Because it's even, I'm shocked at how well I'm selling some of my 8.5 Watsy non-hollows and 8.5 like Evolutions ultra rares. I'm kind of shocked. My cost basis is even lower because I got them in back when you could grade with subgrades for like $11, like the dealer pricing. So yeah, I lean heavily towards the CGC bulk play over the PSA Express. I don't know where you guys are at on that.
If you want to take this one, you can.
No, I want you to go, Nick.
Oh, okay. I have to rethink CGC and kind of like the low end bulk cards with CGC, just because, especially today where you're paying $15 a card versus it was like $7.50 without subgrades. But so now that you're paying so much per card, and CGC doesn't quite realize get the prices that PSA cards get. I can see there being some potential there, but then I can also see it being where after the cost of the card plus the cost of the grading, shipping, all that stuff, I don't know. I don't know if it would be a great move versus just buying CGC PSA graded cards on PWCC. I think that's the play right there, is to buy all the CGC 9.5 PSA 10s, just like the junk modern cards that nobody wants to bid on. There were a ton of auctions last block that went without bids for $10 a piece, and I think you could almost do better on that than having to take the gamble of getting the cards graded and all of that stuff. But if you did want to go the grading route and do kind of this venture, I would say CDC over PSA right now, just because of the cost. It probably really wouldn't be beneficial to send cards in at $150 a piece, where 15 isn't as bad. But that's what I got for that question.
Yeah, I think just the cost of express grading them right now is just too high to justify. There's very few modern cards that after paying $150 to grade, even in the 10, are really worth it. And I mean, the example we have with like the celebrations and even like all the new set secret rares and alt arts have like that little bit of a huge spike on release, with the first to market having that big premium, but that settles really fast. And then at that point, you're pretty much like, like holding a ticking time bomb. Like, you got to dump this item before enough people have gotten them back from Express to justify like the real. And even then, the prices for all this stuff is not close to where it's actually going to end up. Like, I don't know. I think of like the Champions Patch Charizard. I think on release in PSA 10, those were over $1,500 a piece. Then they dropped to 1,000, 800, 700, 500. And they finally found some strength at like 400, I think, maybe 300. And then I don't know. Like, I honestly think you could even make, if you really want to do the flipping of, he mentions just Japanese stuff here too. I think if you really want to maximize your value, you could probably just buy this stuff raw in Japan and flip it in the US. And you would make just as much. You would probably make a greater margin, like percentage wise, just flipping it raw than having to wait the 6 months to grade it, 5-6 months to grade it. I think that's a play that people should look into. And I think there's like this, I've been this idea of like just thinking about buying, grading, and then selling it later on. But I think you can double your money on a lot of these hollows in Japan. They're 80 cents, $1. You're probably selling $2-3 pretty easily on eBay, and you can move volume that way. I think that's a play that if you want to, you can look into.
I actually just I'm gonna try it out and see how it goes. I just bought a whole bunch of Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield Japanese booster boxes from Japan, and I'm gonna try and sell the individual packs on eBay and whatnot. See how that goes.
Is that EV Heroes behind you?
That is, yes, yeah,
Okay.
Up there.
Are you just keeping that sealed?
Yeah, I bought 13 boxes of EV Heroes. Those ones I'm just holding on to. And then I bought a few more recently too. I'm gonna open some of those for sure. So I actually haven't opened any EV Heroes yet.
That's probably a really good set for like Whatnot to open that type of stuff.
I would imagine so. So. But we'll see how that goes. Be an interesting venture.
Yeah, I still haven't opened any EV Heroes either, but I did also pick some up around the same time as Nick. One thing I forgot to mention on this question, kind of a long-term concern I have, I guess medium to long-term. If PSA is actually, I mean, right now they're grading at a pace of roughly 10 million a year, which is a lot. If they actually scale to 20 million a year, as Nat has recently talked about, I don't feel as good about the CGC play either. Because right now, if you send in the CGC bulk, I don't know what they're advertising, their current turnaround, but I think it's in the 10-month range, right?
It's gotta be because I just got a return from March just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So the concern is like if you send bulk today and you don't get it back for a year, if in that time frame PSA pumps out 20 million slabs, that's a lot more plastic on the market. And at some point, like the market still prefers PSA. I'd be concerned getting cards into the backlog at CGC at 15 a card if they lower their prices by 30 or 40% in a year or two to keep pace with PSA. Because again, PSA theoretically talks about wanting to get back to $10 a card. I don't think that you have to be too concerned that that's going to happen anytime soon. But with 20 million cards a year, it might happen sooner than I think. So just keep that in your mind, because what PSA does price wise will have an influence on CGC's pricing and value on the market.
And that's kind of why I was recommending just maybe looking the selling it raw, making your margin there, is because then you don't have to even like express. I mentioned like express grading is like holding that time bomb. Even bulk grading is holding that time bomb. Like if you delayed sending in your modern set by a week, you get it 2 weeks after. The original people that sent them and got it, like that stuff can drop really fast. And then comparing it to what other submissions are coming out, there's a lot of stress, I think, with having the grade and volume right now. And I think you take a lot of that stress. I don't know. I think raw is like something that people don't really appreciate as much, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, there are some cards that I'm getting back right now. Like I mentioned, EVO, Evolutions, CGC 8.5s. I listed some the other day and it's like, okay, the lowest listed on eBay is 25. I'll go 24. Well, then I look at the raw card price and it's like, well, that's an $8 card. If I had just sent that to EVO back when I sent it for grading, it was probably a $12 card then, and I could have netted 10. Now instead, I'm selling it a year later, having spent 10 to grade it, and I'm only netting 5. So it's like there are definitely a reasonable amount of cards I sent to CGC that I'm regretting having sent. I'm still doing fine on them, but I would have done better just selling them raw.
The Champions Patch Charizard I mentioned too is exactly like that. Like I think what I ended up getting for the card in PSA 10s, what they ended up closing out for, was less after fees and then grading costs than I could have just sold the cards for on release raw.
Yeah.
And like I didn't think that was possible at the time because like there was all this hype and stuff. But I think it's like a funny lesson to kind of see like grading something doesn't necessarily mean you're adding any value to it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that is for sure.
So I think we're to our final question for the podcast. Tuz94, a new viewer, he mentioned, just recently found us. How do the markets for Europe and the US compare? I live in the Netherlands and I've not looked into it deeply enough, but from what I saw, I have a feeling it's much more difficult to sell off cards for a price here that is comparable to what they are going for in the United States. Also, do collectors care much if the card they are buying from me happens to be a Dutch version of a Pokemon card as opposed to an English one? I have plenty of both. I'm curious what you think about this. So I guess I'll use this quickly to shout out one of our viewers, Celebi Collectibles. He operates out of Europe. Is he Netherlands? Do you remember?
He's in Netherlands.
I was going to say, I think he's actually Netherlands as well. So check out his channel.
You guys might be next door neighbors.
I was literally just pulling up his YouTube channel because I wanted to figure out where he was from. Because I was going to use him as a reference too.
Yeah, so get in touch with Celebi, check him out, give him a follow, subscribe, all that. I think he does really well. He has a lot of nice purchase videos. One thing that's kind of weird about international sellers is I think they have more hurdles to get over at the start, and they have kind of more difficult markets to operate in. But in a way, it almost ends up being beneficial because you have less people take the plunge on that, knowing that it's harder. So the few people who do overcome those initial hurdles, in a way, it's almost like counterintuitively easier. Because when I'm selling to someone in the Netherlands, like I'm in the market, right? Like the US is kind of the market where all the buying and selling, everything is and all that. But for a buyer to buy from me, they have to pay like 20-30% VAT, whatever it is. Whereas if they buy from you locally, not only do they not have to wait for the time that the GSP takes to get it to them, they don't have to pay that 20-30% VAT to their government. So you've got, at least from what it seems, a more restricted market. And as far as I understand, like a card that I could sell for 100 might sell for 120 or 130 locally there. So in a way, like it almost sounds as if you're asking, will cards go for cheaper? I almost think they might go for more. Like they'll be less liquid. There's less of a buyer pool, but you'll kind of get that extra amount on the fee savings. So I think that's kind of the case. I know some people who operate pretty large in like Australia as well. And I think it's kind of a similar story. It's just more of a restricted market. So the people who do go for it, it really works out well for them a lot of times. As far as the last part, do collectors care if the card they're buying happens to be Dutch versus English? I think people care a lot. I collect English, a little bit of Japanese promos, but like if I'm filling out my binder or buying a card, I want an English one, not a Dutch one. So on that point, like I think that matters a ton. But Celebi, I think he deals in a lot of English and Japanese primarily. I think regardless of where you are in the world, English and Japanese are like the main two. And then if you're in France, French would be up there. If you're in Germany, German, Netherlands, Dutch, all that. So Nick or Edison, what have you got?
I would pretty much agree with everything you said. I definitely like what you were saying. I think you almost have an advantage in those international markets, Europe, Australia specifically, just because I talk to someone who sells in Australia and kind of have a better idea on pricing in Australia versus Europe. But I almost think you have an advantage over internationally compared to the US because like what Dan was saying, your buyer pool is a little bit more limited, but also on the flip side of that, your seller pool is also a lot more limited, meaning there's not as much competition of other sellers. Whereas here in the US, there's a ton of people selling Pokemon cards on eBay, and there is a ton of competition. So that's the only real thing that I would add to that question. I think you covered it pretty well there.
I've talked to Celebi in the past, Celebi Collectibles in the past, about what he's selling. And a lot of the stuff now he seems to be selling is Japanese stuff that he's picked up from lots. That's a lot of our conversation have been about is the mid-era Japanese stuff that I was also buying. And a big benefit to him, and what I was super surprised by was I think it's Card Market.
Yep.
It's like the European TCG player. And I think that's such a good resource to sell on. I think you could pretty much, if you sell on that, you sell to any of the countries within the European Union. I think shipping is very cheap between those countries. It's almost like the United States shipping rates. This might be not completely correct, but I think if you want to make like a decent living off of it, or even to sell a decent volume, you have to go through Carmart and also eBay as well, just to keep your options open. But yeah, I was just surprised with the volume that he was selling, especially like the Japanese stuff. And I think a lot of that volume is exactly like you two said, just it's obviously you have the narrow buyer pool, but maybe that buyer pool actually expands quite a bit once you deal with the whole European Union and people buying from all those different countries. But then it really is that seller pool is so small that you can really just be one of the few people to have any of, like he was selling like old back Japanese, and he was one of the few people that had any listed. And I mean, that's what you want to be. You want to be like this in the seller's market, where the seller aren't competing with each other for the bottom, that they could just sit on it and decide their own price.
Exactly.
And I was gonna say too, just for the other language thing, from my experience, like it seems that people really that collect other languages, it normally has to be for a reason. And it's typically like if they like a specific Pokemon. Like I know someone who once wanted all of the base set Charizards in all the different languages, unlimited and first edition. And you know, if you have a favorite Pokemon, someone I know that collects Typhlosion wants Typhlosion in all the different languages for the Neo sets. I think that's where it is. If it's a popular Pokemon, it makes sense. But yeah, English just has that premium for a lot of sets.
I think that closes out the Q&A portion then.
Ooh.
I don't know if either of you have any topics you want to chat about. We only had one note. I don't know if you want to jump right into that or.
Yeah, we can talk about that one.
Give me time to think up a question or something.
Yeah. So we'll start there and see where we go. So Nat recently, it wasn't like an official PSA post. It wasn't some podcast. It was literally just, he posted some cards on his Instagram. Somebody asked him a question, and then he replied back saying, regulars coming back in 2 weeks. I think that was about a half a week ago. So that would put the return right around Thanksgiving time. When regular closed, I believe it was $100 a card. So I've seen kind of speculation between, well, is it going to come back at 100 or is it going to come back at 75? I think there's reasonable arguments for either. My initial response to hearing that was one of concern. I don't know it'll be interesting to hear what your guys' takes are, but I still have cards out there from last October. Any lowering of the price naturally is going to bring more demand for grading today. Any new card that goes into PSA's possession pushes out the time frame for every other card in their possession, right? Like right now, they're grading 40,000 cards a day. Roughly 90%, I believe Nat has said, is going to the backlog. So quick math, that tells me they're getting in roughly 4,000 cards a day at $150 plus per card. Well, yeah, demand is not going to be a linearly scaling thing. So if you cut the price in half, demand will not simply just double. My concern is that if they open it, especially at $75 per card, today, 90% is on the backlog, 10% is on new submissions. To keep the Express, what they're doing with Express right now, keeping Express at a couple weeks, Super Express at a week, reasonable. But if you lower it to 75 a card, presumably, and a very logical reasoning as to why, you're going to get more than 8,000 cards a day. So that tells me, well, now less than 80% of your manpower goes to the backlog. Right now, they're on October, November timeframe, roughly. And going off of some of the information they were putting out last year in their blogs and in their posts, we know that October was bigger than September, and November was bigger than October, and December was bigger than November. And the 3 months from January to March, I believe that, January, or maybe it was December to February, were bigger than like all of the year prior to that combined. And March was bigger than January and February combined. And the last 3 days of March was bigger than the rest of March. So what you have going on is an exponential curve of how many cards were coming in between October, where they're currently at, and March, where they ended. So like, that's like huge danger, warning, red flag alerts to me Like once we get to where they're into January and February and March, 40,000 cards a day. I had notes somewhere for a video I'm going to be making at some point, but I think Nat said on one day they received 660,000 cards. So at 40,000 cards a day, that one day they received 3 weeks worth of work. So once we get to where the complete through date is like March 29th of 2021, it'll take 3 weeks for them to move the complete through date one additional day. I don't think people like are fully comprehending that. So to me, when you have a company who's opening up a new service level with that much of the backlog still in front of them at this time of year, it's the end of the year. I used to work in the corporate world. So many people would use their 2 weeks vacation to take off like 3/4 of December because you get so much time with Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. People would just like bridge. Oh yeah, it's like December 9th. Oh, I'll see you next year, Dan. What? You're off the like. So they're not going to grade 40,000 cards a year or 40,000 cards a day through December. There's no way. So like coming up on the end of the year when everyone's going to be gone on holiday and vacation to potentially bring in like a new mini wave is just reckless. I think it's absurd. I don't know if I'm like too crazy, too worked up over that there, but I just think they're crazy.
I think they almost have to start bringing back these lower tiers. I don't think we'll see below $100 with this next reopening, whatever regular you said. I think it'll be right at $100. I think if they go any lower than that, then they're starting to get a little crazy. But I almost think they have to start opening other tiers just because they originally said they were going to be reopening everything in June, July. They were going to be completely reopened, and we have not seen that.
I can't believe people fell for that.
I have no idea. I can't believe they said they were going to do that.
You know, one thing that's like crazy, like celebrations. We're all here today. We all know that. Just what was that? The 22nd, or was it October 22nd?
Yeah.
They've graded 1,167 cards from celebrations.
Man.
At $150 per card.
Oh, it might not have been. I think 22nd was the premium collection.
I think it was the 12th, October 12th.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. So it's been a little over a month. But like
that's still
even in a month.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That is one set of one card game, and sports is so much bigger and so much more expensive. Yeah. My concern is even at 100 is like a big psychological barrier.
Oh yeah.
100 feels a lot cheaper than 150. And if I'm paying as a retail customer, if we're paying 100, some of the bigger businesses submitting literal thousands or like if the retail price is 100, people are paying 80 or 90, 100%. Yeah. So I'm just really concerned that if Pokemon has managed to grade 1,200 cards that are worth nothing at 150 a piece, we would have graded 5,000 or 10,000 had it been 75. Probably, it's the floodgates are going to open to an extent if they go down to 75 and even 100. I mean, it's scary.
I was going to say, kind of like you said, Nick, that like, I mean, both of you kind of just hinted at like the price floor, that there's a definite price floor that they can go to. I mean, I think anything under 50 is out of the question. You can't go that low. Like that would completely open the floodgates of people sending stuff in.
Oh yeah.
I think 75 is probably too low at like half of the current tier. And even at 100, like you see it a lot on E4, you see it a lot on like Facebook groups for it, on Reddit, on any social media. Just people are literally sitting around with piles and piles of stuff to grade. And at the moment that the price of grading a PSA goes under a certain amount, they're not going to care. They're just going to send it all in.
Mhm.
And I think you mentioned like a good point there too, Dan, at the end, I mean, we're not even talking about regular consumer at this point too. Dealers are probably sitting on thousands of cards each, maybe tens of thousands of cards each. That they're just waiting at any opportunity. If they could save 50% the current grading cost, like they would probably just send out half that inventory. And you're right. I just did not realize the numbers at which they're still like how much stuff they have. And I guess I never rationalized it. I thought PSA has been doing a good job getting through people's orders, but it's because those orders weren't even sent in the time when the actual backlog really started to pick up. And it was October when, I think that was like the Logan Paul box break was October. Then November, all the streamers got in. December, everyone was talking about it. Wow, I didn't realize they were actually so much further behind than I realized. I guess is the takeaway for me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's scary. And I guess when I was saying October and all that, I was going by the date that I sent them. As far as they go off of their registration date. So I'm not sure exactly where they are per registration date, but that's such a stupid thing because it doesn't even include dealer submissions, which is like one of their largest. I'm sure dealer submissions
that's
vastly outnumber retail submissions. So
definitely.
What kind of a metric is that just shows like, yeah.
And you had mentioned that you said they're grading 4,000 cards a day at the express tier, approximately.
Well, so they're doing 40,000 a day. People pull that from the pop report increases every day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and PSA has stated that number and people are getting that number from the pop report. So I believe it. There's no reason not to. The 90%, Nat mentioned in one of his podcasts that he was on, he mentioned that approximately 90% of the backlog or 90% of the manpower is going towards the backlog. So quick math is just, that means 4,000 cards a day, 10% of 40,000 is servicing like express, super express, and walkthrough.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing.
Again, 4,000 cards a day at 150 plus.
And that's the thing, it's the plus, because that gets expensive when you get up there.
And like, as I mentioned, it's not going to be a linear thing. If you have the price, you're going to substantially more than double the demand.
Yeah. It's
so
I just rationalizing those numbers, you realize that they're probably grading over $1 million in fees a day just from those higher tier submissions. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of money.
Oh yeah. They're doing quite well for themselves.
And it's just concerning because, like, as I mentioned, some people are tracking the complete through dates and, it's been a month and they've pushed through a month or whatever. Like, and then they're linearly projecting that ahead, but you can't because the submissions were not linear.
Yeah.
The submissions were extremely exponential. I mean, to the extent that the last 3 days was more than the 30 prior, and those 30 were more than the 90 prior. Like, that's quite the exponential chart going on there.
I think if they officially are going to do this, like what they would have to show is if they're reopening like a lower tier, it can't just be they're pulling from the new workforce. They have to make an announcement that they've hired on like, hundreds of new employees or whatever that are strictly just there, that they're being brought on for the new service level. But if they're not making that clear, then it very much is that they're just pulling people from the workforce that's already handling the huge backlog, diverting them here. I mean, I agree with you. There's no way that they can get through that backlog, that tsunami, more or less, of cards if they're pulling resources now. I mean, you mentioned the corporate world thing too. I think part of it might just be we're in quarter four now. They might want to bump up those like submission totals for the end of the year reports, just to make it seem like they ended 2020 on this, amazing note. I don't know, but I literally cannot fathom how many cards will be chucked at them. And we keep thinking in Pokemon terms for a lot of us. the sports cards are the real people who are going to jump on this like crazy if that gets cheaper.
And one thing that is going to temper demand is like prices have fallen a lot.
Yeah.
So if they slowly open these newer tiers coming down to 100, 75, 50, I mean, hopefully they're smart enough. Like, say somehow they get way more submitted than they realize they would. They better be ready to turn it off.
Oh, I'm
Like,
sure they will at this point.
You think so? I feel like they might just. I mean,
I don't think so. I don't think so.
They were so dumb to take in for so like they know how many they could grade a day, and they knew how many they were getting every day, and they just let them keep coming in. Like, imagine. So I found my notes for an upcoming thing. Nat said every day in January onward, 100,000 plus cards a day came in. Today, their capacity is 40,000.
Yeah.
Back then, their capacity was like less than 20. So every day they were getting a week's worth of work, and they just sat there. It's like the whole the "this is fine" meme with that dog sitting in the room. Like, literally, they were like, "This is fine."
I wonder if that we'll never know, but I wonder if that had anything to do with the fact they knew they were selling.
It was a weird thing. Yeah, the sale, like their hands were probably tied with what they could do, and they didn't want to do certain things to spook invest, whatever. Like,
yeah,
closing out the paying off all the investors. It's probably more complicated than any of us can understand, but now it's not. Now they own it. They can do what they want. They have no one to really report to.
Yep.
If they open $100 a card or $50 a card, they better not just say this is fine and what. Like, the second that more than 40,000 cards coming in a day, that's bad.
Yeah.
Because that means the backlog got bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, they just need to be ready to like backpedal if and when they need to. And I hope they do, because again, every day from January on was 100,000 cards submitted. So every day from January on, to push that complete through date one day is 2.5 working days minimum.
Yeah. But then you got to think they are expanding.
He said their goal is to get to 80,000 cards a day. 80,000 is still less than 100,000. So say, say they magically scale double again within the next month or two, they're still not going to be pushing the complete through date one day for every business day that passes.
Yeah.
And then that last day in March where they received 660,000 cards, that's still like almost 2 weeks worth to get through one day.
That's insanity.
Hopefully prices keep crashing. They keep expanding their capacity. But that's a thing too. Like, it blows my mind to think that they want to scale to 20 million cards a year. Because say they do, that's going to lower the prices on a lot of things. Like,
yeah, but they don't care. They're still making money.
Well, the thing is, when the prices go lower, the demand goes lower for grading. Even if at $10 a card, I'm gonna grade all my non-hollow WotC first edition stuff because it's all going for 20 to 100.
Yep.
But like, if that lasts too long, if I can get back a card within 3 weeks, within a month, like you used to years ago for $10 a card, I'm going to grade thousands of cards, get them all back, list them all. The prices are going to tank, and then it won't be profitable, so I won't send anymore. Like, demand for grading is going to come down as prices come down. So they'll almost, if they sell it too cheap, they'll cannibalize themselves because they'll crash the prices of the product, lowering the demand. So like, if they stay 20 plus, it has the effect of, like, to an extent, increasing the prices of the cards, which keeps people submitting the cards. I am highly skeptical that they're going to actually go back to $10 a card. I don't think it's in their best interest.
I think they will. I don't think it'll be a free for all type thing where anyone can submit 10,000 cards at $10 a card. I think they're either going to do like we were talking last week. If you're working towards your set registry, you can grade those cards, or maybe they'll say each person can grade 100 cards at $10 a piece, or something like that.
I'm a little surprised that they haven't mentioned putting limits on accounts. I think that's a pretty logical step forward. But at the same time, too, we say limits on accounts. We're talking about limits on retail accounts.
Yeah.
They're not putting limits on dealer accounts. And then all it becomes is the people that we're actually helping and benefiting are like the huge franchises already. Like those are the people that get their stuff graded no matter what. They get priority, they get better prices. No, but I agree. I was just gonna say I agree with you, Dan. Like I don't. It's also like if they scale to 80,000 cards a day, and if they even hit 100,000 cards a day, and they're really chugging along, I mean, eventually that ends. Eventually they do clear their backlog, and what happens to all those employees that they just spent all that time to train and get prepped, and they've already spent a year and a half working at this company? They might not even be a need for that many people to grade cards anymore, even if the prices go lower. I don't know. I think if the prices go too low for grading, a lot of stuff will get cheaper.
Well, I just pulled up Pokemetrics. Shout out to them. 2.5 million Pokemon cards have been graded. Half of that within the past year. If we scale to 20 million cards a year grading at PSA, like recently I want to say, what percentage of the new grading has been
Pokemon cards?
Yeah, TCG is 47,000 out of what am I? I'm at so TCG is roughly 25% of what they're grading today.
Yeah. And then Pokemon's a big percentage of TCG.
Like I think a couple years of the total population of Pokemon cards grading doubling in a row is going to be really bad for pricing. Yeah, I don't know.
Because then you there's got to be some type of price floor though. If you're grading like WotC commons and uncommons, as long as people aren't grading like modern commons and uncommons, I think it's just going to go back to the way it was, where they're 9s you break even, 10s you make a little bit of money. I think that's like the worst case scenario that would happen. And then people are just being more selective of what cards they're actually grading.
Well, what that does then though is there's not going to be demand for 20 million cards a year to be graded.
And that's kind of my point with like what happens to all those people that they've now hired, the facilities that they've now hired. Like it's almost like it almost doesn't even make sense like why they got bought out at when they did. Is because they're pretty much, they got bought out at their pinnacle. They got bought out at their pinnacle. And I think that's very fair to say. I think grading at this volume has reached its peak. And maybe that's not the case, but I don't think that there will be that need to grade that many cards a year if the prices on everything reduce even further.
Yeah, and I feel like grading is held in such high regard as if it's like such a difficult thing to do when it's really not that much. Like, I honestly think Nat, being a shrewd businessman, he doesn't have shareholders to answer to anymore. It's kind of a cold, heartless thing. But like, if in a year or two he needs to lay off 50% of his workforce, like,
I don't think he's going to hesitate.
I've worked in industries where we created millions of dollars worth of product, and it required much more specialized labor than grading a card does, because honestly, at the end of the day, it's looking at a card, grading it out of 10, and putting it in a piece of plastic on a machine that you literally just pull a lever and it sonically seals. It's like, it's not rocket science. And the equipment, like the reason so many mom and pop basement grading companies are popping up is because you can literally start one for less than like $5,000. The sonic welder, buying the like there's not much to grading. So it's not like PSA is spending tens of millions of dollars in equipment and production machinery that will sit idle if and when capacity like needs to be slashed in half. So like in a way, it's almost a business. Like if McDonald's wanted to double the number of McDonald's establishments they had in the US, that's a massive capital investment in property, in equipment. And it's not just like firing half of your workforce. It's firing half your workforce and then having thousands of buildings with fryers and ovens and all this capital expenditure and equipment that you're not going to recoup. At PSA, it's like a few $1,000,000 worth of sonic welders. And then what else is it? Lease office space, lease warehouse space. I don't know. I feel like if they get to 20 million, they'll be coming back from that because demand won't be there for it.
Yeah, but
maybe I'm completely wrong and all that, but
I think that's true, but I think that is so far away.
Yeah.
That won't be a concern for any time soon. Because you got to think, they have this massive backlog right now. They can keep lowering the tiers all the way back down to $10 a card. And with the way things are right now, there's going to be a ton more cards that they get. So I don't think that's going to be a concern for them for 5-ish years.
I mean, if I would do the company, I would do the very scummy thing and keep opening up the tiers and never hire more workers. Don't increase the efficiency. And then
literally just never grade the stuff that was sent in March 2020. Like
just burn that warehouse.
What, like 20-year turnaround, 30-year turnaround? What, like
it's investment grade turnaround. By the time it gets back, it's like
it's investment. That'll be a new tier they open.
It's the cheapest.
At the end of the day, it really highlights how insane it was. Because like right now they have demand 4,000 cards a day. They have that much demand at 150 a card. And they're stuck grading cards from a year ago for $10 a card. Imagine if the backlog didn't exist and today they had the capacity of 40,000 cards a day. They could probably bring in 40,000 cards a day at $40 a card.
Oh yeah.
Clearly they can bring in 4,000 a day at 150. So if they were still bringing in those same 4,000 and then the other 36,000, they could probably bring those in at an average of $40 a card. So do the math on that. Like how many 36,000 times $30 a card? That's how much they're potentially costing themselves every day having built that backlog, which is just absurd. Like,
I think this conversation, I think, kind of goes in it's like combined, or like they go together, is like how much of the current prices on cards are really determined by the turnaround time and price of grading them themselves. And I think this is I think you and I have very some ideas here, Dan, that a lot of the prices are propagated because it's so hard to replicate and so hard to resubmit stuff now. But if you ever get to that point where you could grade something for $10, it comes back in a couple of weeks or even a month, we're going to be a very different time. But I agree with you too, Nick. Like, I don't think that's for like 5-6 years. Like, that's a long ways away.
Yeah, cards couldn't have done what they did last fall if PSA was open at $10 a card with a 1-month turnaround.
Yeah,
because the first EV that sold for 200, I would have sent 10, and had them a month later. Well, then the next week when they went for 350, I would have sent 20 more. And then they went for 400, I would have sent 50 more. And then it would have it would have peaked a lot lower and it would have came back a lot quicker. And
yeah. It'll be interesting though. I hope we do get a price reduction before the end of the year.
I want all my cards back
December
before
would be
they
nice.
lower the price more.
What was that?
I want all my cards back before they lower the price too much more.
Hey, some of us weren't able to submit that many cards to PSA.
Ugh.
It feels bad to think about too that if you have stuff there, if you sent it in, as you said, like those last 3 months before closure, you realistically have no idea. You cannot guess at all when those cards are going to come back to you. Even if they're, it's all speculative.
Could you can roughly extrapolate, assuming you can approximate how much the backlog is, and then 36,000 cards a day. You can do the math and figure out when they should be done. But the unknown is what tiers they open and when, and how many new cards. Like if they go from 36,000 cards a day on the backlog to, like if they open up $20 grading at the end of the month, they're definitely getting more than 40,000 cards a day for the foreseeable future.
I would say if they even opened up at
$50
$50 a card, they're still getting 40,000 or more.
Yeah, I think at 75, like the way that it's going to work is there's going to be a massive surge to start.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
it's going to taper a little bit.
Yeah.
So like I honestly think week one of $75 a card might exceed 40,000 cards a day. But like a month or two later, it probably, like I don't think it would hold there.
Yeah.
But like surely, I mean, in March of 2020, $10 a card equated to 660,000 cards a day demand. We have that data point.
But then you also got to think, look at what was going on back in March. I don't think if they were open at $10 a card today, it would be anywhere close to that demand.
Back in March,
assuming like it wasn't, they haven't been shut down this whole time.
Yeah, people hadn't held cards for 8 months.
Exactly. Yeah. No, if they reopened at $10 a card today, I couldn't even imagine how many cards they'd be getting.
Yeah.
It's an exciting
multiple
hobby.
Million.
It's an exciting time and an exciting hobby we're in.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sorry I got so ranty there. I'm getting fired up.
I'm curious if they end up following through and getting it to 80,000 a day. Because I mean that's a huge increase. That's doubling what they grade now per day. That's probably quadrupling to maybe 5xing what they were grading a year ago. Like that might
be towards 10x.
And just because I do think that actually does take a lot of space to grade cards, mostly just because the machines. Because I mean, they do need to have enough space to house all the machines. They need to have enough space to package everything. That does require a lot of allocation of resources, and I don't know. To me, it always seems like Nat Turner has a lot of positive things to say about PSA and only hopeful and good news about the future. But that seems to be a very different message and story than the people who grade with them seem to have.
Yeah.
It'll be exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. A little bit scared, but that makes it exciting, right?
I guess I should say, I was going to say, Nick, are you not excited for maybe BGS lowering their prices?
I couldn't care less of what BGS did.
They give you a special offer, Nick. $5 a card if you submit to them. They just want your seal of approval.
One thing I know, like as far as business strategy goes, any plastic that I have today, if I'm taking PSA for their word that they want to get back to $10 a card and 20 million cards a year, what do you think you want to do with any PSA plastic you have today?
Oh, sell it.
So in a way, like it almost might be a self-fulfilling prophecy. People are gonna fire sale what they have, like
Yeah, try to beat
especially
out the
like
returns.
the good stuff that I can't replace. Like right now, I just recently had a video. I don't have a lot more of these cards to send, Diamond and Pearl era hollows, but like WotC hollows, modern stuff. You want to hot potato that stuff as quick as you can, because if and when it gets to where you can turn it back through again quick, the prices can only come down a lot.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking too, like I mentioned all the resources that have to go into actually grading 80,000, like just talking about manpower and machinery. I'm not even factoring like the actual plastic to get that many slabs done. That's hard.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting like choked up. Not from PSA, but just in general.
all this PSA talk's making you upset.
Oh my god, it's the BGS slander. But yeah, just the amount of plastic. We were talking about the plastic waste that grading industry and Pokemon and like all these collectibles create. Like we're still seeing issues of supply chain issues from COVID-19 shutdowns, and I don't even know how you would source those many cases, because that's a lot. It's 20 million cases. Like I can't even imagine how many they were ordering in the past 20. I don't even know how long they've been around, but that's probably more than they used to go through in 5-6 year period, maybe even a 10-year period.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 20 million a day. I mean, the cert numbers are only in the 50, 60 millions. So yeah, they're talking about
what are you talking
20
about?
million a year.
Okay.
Yeah, 20 million a year.
20 million a day would definitely drop the prices by quite a bit if they could get to that.
But I think they've been around since,
I want to say it's like 94, 95.
Yeah, so you're talking about in the next 3 years, you're gonna double what was done in the first. I mean,
let's think 20.
I want to say it was earlier than the 90s, wasn't it?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna Google 1991.
Damn it!
Yeah, I was gonna say I was thinking it was 30 years, which
it is 30 years.
Yeah. So if they do in the next 3 what they did in the first 30, I mean that's substantial.
Yeah. And I think for other businesses, like it makes sense to have this like exponential growth, but it's not really like PSA is like a sustainable business model, in my opinion. It's the encapsulation of products at the end of the day. And you really need you need customers to want and feel the pressure to encapsulate. And I think that's why they push so hard. And I mean, I think that's why like BGS sponsored Logan Paul, so to speak, for the Charizard, because you need the drive hype. You need to convince people that they need to send their stuff to auction houses. I remember in a video you commented on, like, I thought it was so weird and I thought it was kind of problematic when CGC endorses Heritage, endorses Golden Auctions, because like these companies, their goal should be to encapsulate cards. It should just be great, impartial, and that's it. But they have to try to hype up how much money the stuff is worth after grading to convince you to send their stuff in. And if the prices on stuff drops to the point where they can't muster enough excitement to send off thousands of cards, I think that's when they're going to have these fears and are going to struggle.
Yeah.
Sorry, I felt inspired there to go on that little bit of a tangent.
Oh,
connecting on the points.
You're good.
I'm surprised with how late you guys do these podcasts.
Yeah, the 3-hour chat beforehand really pushes us deep into the night.
Yeah, this is an interesting time frame. Do people know you record this late at night?
We talk about it sometimes. For anyone watching still, it's 2 a.m. right now.
Yeah, you have like this long onboarding to get people ready and discuss ideas, and then another couple hours of just talking.
It's not even just when we have guests. It's like Nick and I will just chat for like too long beforehand to catch up on the past 2 weeks when we message almost every single day anyways.
It creates a good environment.
Exactly.
It's And the only reason I'm asking about the plastic thing too is because I know that was an issue that CGC had with like comic books, is getting the plastic for the comic book holders. Video game grading, to my knowledge, that's a big thing holding back WADA from grading like DS games. Is it's hard to get the scale of acrylic that they would need to get all those cases done imported from China. And I think plastics in general are just the way Pokemon Company packages stuff. You wouldn't think plastic is in like a shortage right now. But I think plastic in general is
all
just
the plastic they use.
Yeah.
Yeah, if PSA will just start accepting all the plastic that I recycle, they can just
As a credit,
turn that over, turn
they
that
just
into the
melt
new
it down into
cases.
the new case. Oh,
There we go.
Gotta get on the horn with PSA and Pokemon Company and try to connect the two there.
There we go. I like it.
I could see that being a good partnership with like any of these companies, though, like BGS or CGC, just to say like, oh, we're taking a more sustainable route to our cases.
Nat owns, I mean, he owns the grading company, the auction house. I think they've got a vault too.
I remember you mentioned that in a comment.
Next, he's gonna buy the printer, and he's gonna buy Pokemon, and then he's just gonna sell you booster packs of PSA graded cards, and you can send them straight to the auction house.
You never even see them. They're NFT too.
Yeah, where they're auctioned through one of the fractional share companies as an NFT. That's
Man,
that's
we're going all out here.
You're not supposed to spoil Nat's plans. He's gonna take over the world.
Clock strikes 2. We get real deep here.
I guess that's something that I'm surprised more people don't take issue with when they discuss grading. Is like how weird does it feel that, I mean, even with CGC and Heritage, like that partnership is very close between the higher ups of both companies. Obviously Heritage and WADA had that whole scandal too with the fact that all the high end WADA games were just being sold to the founders of WADA. They're not actually going for that. They're just going to like people who have a vested interest in shilling or like hyping up the brand. And that does rub me the wrong way. And obviously there's not going to be any intervention. There's not going to be any official, like, there has to be a separation of the auction house, but it's not like anything's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a shame. And like, even like, it just doesn't make sense. Like if the stuff goes for super high to keep up interest, like this is like a genuine fear, I think, in video games and comics, but like, is the stuff even paid for? And you see it in trading cards now too, with like the Torchic Gold Sword that went for $50,000. Like, is there, just because it went for that, does that mean it was paid for?
That one I heard was a confirmed sale.
No. It just came out recently that was not paid.
I think it was confirmed that it was like a reputable buyer.
It was a reputable buyer who's always paid until they didn't pay this Torchic. I just heard.
Wow.
But and then it's interesting
The
because
tables have turned.
That goes for $50,000, and then you see, I mean, eBay didn't have any for sale, and now it just so happens that everyone's like, oh, you know what? I don't like this card $50,000 worth.
Yeah, exactly.
And that feels, I don't know. There's a lot of scary things that go on behind the scenes. We're, all things considered, we're very small fish.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Compared to the actual money that's moving around in the hobby.
For sure.
Yeah.
I like the sheet behind you, Nick.
Nice little fossil sheet.
Yeah, I've wanted to get sheets, but I just have no place to store them.
That's the thing. I don't have any wall space anymore.
That's the thing. I do have wall space now, and I have
this wall behind you look good with a couple like sheets hung up.
I've got the frames. I just ordered frames on Amazon. 26 by 40, I think they are, something like that. I wish I still had my fossil sheet. I don't, but I have some nice top sheets. Ooh. I have some other random ones, but I actually have, if I were to, I've got 2 monitors here. I thought like in the future, every other podcast, I'd just put my camera on one and you'd see this wall, and then I'd put it on the other and you'd see this wall. So that I could shift up the backgrounds. And I do have some sheets I'm going to get up soon. I'm excited for that because for years I just had like a stack of them in top loaders. And it's like, I like the idea of displaying these, but I can't. So I sold a lot. I actually had a really clean, nice fossil sheet. I bought for 300 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when it hit like 1,200, I'm like, man, that's awesome. Tripled my money.
Woo!
And now what are they? $5,000 for a clean one?
Yeah, yeah.
Ugh.
I always think it's funny. Like every person that I know that owns sheets, I think like they literally just have them rolled up sitting in a closet.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
It's just, I don't know. They're really cool, and you can still find sheets for like newer games. I think WotC sheets are still pretty common for like Magic. The newer Magic sets they still get out there. It just makes sense as like a display piece, and I wasn't in the hobby when they were super cheap, but that price still seemed like $300 seemed really cheap for what it was. But
oh yeah,
there are probably a lot out there too.
It was actually it kind because like the back when these were $300, you could have gotten the Neo Genesis common sheets for like $50 or $100.
Rusty was selling them real cheap. Yeah, he had a lot.
There were a ton of those sheets back in the day.
When I was at Collecticon Houston, the person that I was staying with, he had that same sheet, and I was like, oh, I would consider it, and then I think it came out to like $900. I was like, oh, that's not bad for a sheet. But now realizing what it was, it feels a little bad knowing that. And the amount like the pallets of stuff that Rusty's probably sold through is always fun to think about. Like his
for sure.
base set wrappers too. Like I can only imagine how many of those he sold.
Yeah.
He's sold a lot of those.
Most of my sheets came from Rusty. I bought like a dozen, 12 to 15 sheets off him, I want to say, years ago. And like the total price I paid for all those was really low. I mean, everything. You look at anything, the price then and now, it's probably on par, like a similar multiple.
I actually sold him. Have you seen the fossil wrapper roll? He's been selling like the sheets of the fossil wrappers. I was the one who found that. I'm proud of that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't cut it up yourself and sell them.
I was doing that for a little while, but they were such a pain to cut up and package. I did not enjoy that at all. So I ended up I actually traded him that roll for my first base set booster box.
That seems like a pretty good trade.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, because I forget how much boxes were back then. This is like 20. It was before Worlds, right before Worlds, or maybe a couple months before. So boxes were like 4,000 to 5,000, and I bought the wrapper roll.
Do you want to say it live?
I bought it for 500.
Nice. Those things have so many. Like he's talked about the base rolls he has. They have thousands.
Oh yeah.
Per roll. Like it is crazy.
The fossil one wasn't nearly as big. It was probably like less than an inch of actual wrappers. But it's like doubled. So you have like top and bottom. Unlike the base where it's just a roll of one.
Trying to think of how these look like rolled, and it's very hard to visualize it like as the complete sheet. I guess for reference, like I'm very, very new to selling Pokemon. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but like I bought my first pack of cards recently in July of 2020 after my birthday. And here I am more or less a year later. So like the prices that I've known are quite high. Like I have no reference for when stuff was $300 for a fossil sheet. And like
my mind is still stuck on some of the prices that I pay. Like I've bought fossil boxes, fossil first edition, anywhere between 300 and 10,000. But like I bought more than a dozen of them between 300 and 500, and I've only bought one or two in the $10,000 range. So like in my mind, it's still like the most frequent price is like, yeah, that's a $500 box, but it's not been for a long, long time.
Nope.
Even if you average it out, you're quite a bit lower than the actual market price at this
Yeah.
point. I guess I'm more so excited to see how the next couple of years plan out for all this. And I've talked to people about in the past that, we kind of talked about this early before the show, just about like me wanting to get a distributor license to see how the market goes in terms of a slowdown. I'm really excited to see how that is, because it was so easy for people to kind of come in when everything's booming and to stick around. But I think it's a lot tougher. A lot of people won't stick around if it gets slow, if there's not as much money in it for them. And that's what I want to see.
I can't wait for that day.
Yeah, I'm excited for the future, because even 5-7 years ago, when things weren't insane, I still did well doing it on the side. And now that I'm doing it full time, like there's a lot of stuff I can catch up on and different things I can look into if and when it will slow down at some point. I mean, it has slowed down quite a bit from this time last year. So
I just want to get back into actually opening modern product and selling singles.
that might be close. We've got
I think it might be.
A lot of the new sets are back down to 100 to 120 per box.
Yep.
Are you not opening product because it makes more sense to just sell it sealed?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I was surprised on Facebook the amount of people I saw selling sets for like 119, 125 per box.
Oh yeah. I
mean, I've seen Vivid Voltage for 120 again, and that seemed kind of crazy.
A lot of this, aside from like the ultra premium collection, a lot of Celebrations is at retail too, or pretty near. I mean, I think ETBs are like 60. You can find them.
I mean, after tax,
retail's 50, so that's pretty close to retail.
You're pretty much there.
Like it's tax plus gas to go to the Target. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, on everything except for the ultra premium collection. I mean, a lot of the recent booster boxes now are $119.99, which is less than retail.
Yep.
So it's not like the historical market price has always been right around 100. So it's not like what the historical market price was, but it's under retail. So,
but if we do historical market price plus inflation over the past couple of years, we're actually not that far off from. I mean, inflation is a very real like.
That is true. That is
6% over the last year, isn't it? It's pretty high lately.
This past year's been really high. So in that regard, like, if you actually factor 6% into the price of a lot of stuff, has the market actually has not moved as crazy of an amount. I'm excited for that. I also think what you're mentioning, like Celebrations, I think the value in that is actually just breaking the product down and selling it for like the loose parts. I mean, you could send the Celebrations pack to EVO and they sell for like $6 at EVO or on Trolling Toad.
Yeah, one thing that's always one like semi-large part of my business has always been just buying and breaking down collection boxes and tins and things like that, because and it used to be a much more manual thing. I was the one selling the promo and the code and the empty tin, the empty Elite Trainer box. And now that EVO does a lot of that, it's even easier. But Pokemon is all.
I was gonna say, can you send empty tins to EVO?
Yeah, it's tough, like, because shipping is a lot given their volume. But like I had like 200 Celebrations ETBs there, and I'm like, hey, can you break down? You can pay them hourly. It used to be a per item thing years ago before I was into it, talking to Rusty, but you can pay them like an hourly rate and they'll bust your products all the way to singles if you want. But you can have them turn an ETB. They'll sell the booklet, they'll sell the dice, the dividers, the empty box. I think I'm selling empty ETB boxes right now for like 75 cents or plus shipping.
Yeah,
I have no idea what they charge for shipping, but
who's buying the booklets and all that garbage though?
From my end, since I'm selling so much, I get a storage credit. Like I would tell them to like recycle or get rid of them, dispose of them. But since I have like the free storage fee, essentially, I have 100 empty ETBs of various sets in there, and they're slowly selling. They're making me hardly nothing, but it's like, why not? If someone
Yeah, no, if,
wants it,
if it's
and
free to keep them there, might as well.
yeah,
So you were saying like in the past they would actually, maybe not even now, they'll, when you say they'll break it down to the singles, they'll actually open up your booster pack.
oh yeah. I had them break Shining Fates for me, 200 packs, I think. So raw fulfillment is when you send cards in like unsorted bulk, whatever, they'll
Yeah.
sort it and list it. And that used to be 6 cents a card when I started, and now it's 10. Um, A-list raw fulfillment, they call it. It used to be 2 cents a card when I started.
Now it's 6. Is that
Now,
the one that's
now it's 6. When Rusty started years ago, I think it used to be like $15 an hour. You'd pay them, and
Man.
they could do a lot. Like if you figure out the hourly rate at 2 cents an item, it's a lot more than $15 an hour, but it's still reasonable for what it is. Well, now it's 6 cents, so it's tougher. Like Nick said, a lot of the modern singles, like those Celebrations hollows, those are selling for 20 cents a piece, 25 cents a piece. So you can't really pay them 6 cents per card to open them. You'd not be making anything.
You're better off selling them as just bulk at that point.
So yeah, doing A-list raw fulfillment is tough, but like I'll have to look back because I don't know what they charged me, but I paid them to open 58, I think it was. They turned 50 Celebrations ETBs into their components. So 50 empty boxes, 50 sets of dice, 50 dividers, 50 sleeves, all the different packs. And I just paid them. And what I used to do years ago is I'd buy that stuff, I'd break it down, and I'd sell that all on my eBay. Well, one thing that's fascinated me over the years with Pokemon, it seems like the whole is never worth more than the sum of the parts. And that even goes for like vintage booster boxes. Like when fossil boxes are 10 grand, you can sell light packs for like the booster box divided by 36. So you could buy the booster box, sell the 12 heavy packs, or open the 12 heavy packs, sell the light ones. And it's like, it's always blown my mind how there's like almost no premium for the sealed product. And you're seeing that like right now, the Pikachu figure collection, that big fat Pikachu figure that sells for like $15.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then the packs that come in it, and it's like you can sell it sealed for 60, or you can break it down and sell $80 worth of stuff.
That's exactly what we were talking about earlier with the ultra premium collections that
Yeah.
I was mentioning they're like 260 on StockX. I was just trying to check out on my phone because I told Nick that by the end of this I'll probably buy one. It gets like 290, but like that is not equal at all to what you get for it. Like I mentioned, you get the promos go for more than that. You're not even factoring the packs you get, and then you get the coin, the dice. It's just,
And
I think,
imagine buying it wholesale for $80.
and that's why when like I was asking the question about EVO, and when I was talking about like monetizing stuff, that's why I'm most excited about doing more EVO in the future, is realizing like you realistically can just buy this stuff, break it down into its components, and then send it off to them, or just have them, as you said, do it.
Yeah.
I just think it's super funny, the concept of you sending this stuff from the distributor to them, and that you don't even open the pack yourself. You have some worker open them for you and do the. That's really funny to think like the guy doing the pack trick having to open all these packs for you. But I assume it's very fast. I've seen like fast. I think I've seen Troll Into It videos online of them breaking down booster boxes, and they're like machines.
Oh yeah.
Ripping the packs open and sorting the energy, the common, the uncommons. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, you can go through booster boxes pretty quickly.
Do you know if does EVO use a machine to sort through bulk?
I would imagine they have those Roco robots or whatever they're called.
Where they can like tell what the card is by scanning it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Roca sorter, I think, is
Roco,
one of
yeah,
them.
That's it, yeah.
I think there's a lot of things going on in that field, in that I forget where I even heard about it, but a lot of the big gaming stores you've heard of, they've got those, and they're doing a lot with them. I think that's something that'll be when PSA buys Pokemon and buys the printing facilities, and
Not PSA, Nat Turner.
when that turn,
Yeah.
they'll have from like the pulp coming in to the graded card going to the vault for fractional NFT.
Investing.
Not a single human will touch it to taint the product.
Man. Well, I think I'm good for tonight.
Yeah, I think we got over 2 hours again.
We're close to the longest podcast.
Our average is really drifting up there. It's becoming the norm.
We're at 250.
It's like that.
Now.
This is becoming the $10,000 fossil booster box for you. We're just bringing up the average of everything else.
Hopefully we're not gonna scale like PSA's backlog did, because then we're gonna be doing like 14-hour podcasts in 2 months.
I'm telling you, it's perfect for like late night truck drivers who doing 12-hour shifts.
Late night truck.
That's your target audience.
That's who's listening to the podcast.
Doing a cross country haul.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen to the old school Catch 'em All podcast, 14 hours.
Oh man.
I mean, we're talking about how much money streamers make. There was like streams where people literally just sleep on stream and they're pulling in thousands of dollars in donations as they sleep. That could be you guys. Just sleep on camera.
It's insane.
But this has been fun. I want to keep you guys.
Yes, thanks for joining us, Edison.
Thanks for coming on, and I'll definitely have everything linked of Edison's if you want to do like a shout out. You've got just your name on here.
I'm Edison Sears. That's my YouTube channel. But my eBay store, my website, and I guess like my brand, so to speak, my story is Isle Collectibles. I don't know. I think there is a good amount of overlap between our fans, especially because you mentioned Celebrity. Like that's someone I talk to quite frequently. It's funny to hear.
Yeah, going on to different people's channels and looking at the comments or hopping into a live, and I see a lot of the same names for sure. Like there's definitely a lot of overlap in our community, but to some extent, like I'm sure we have hundreds of unique subscribers between the three of us too on each channel. So
this is definitely fun. Introduce each other to our fans, our viewers.
Well, I have at least I can't even do the math. I was gonna make a joke about how low subscribers you have.
Oh yeah, you have over 1,000 unique to me. I mean, at least
he has quite a bit more unique subscribers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick, what the hell did Dan do to you?
Going right for it, man.
We're not supposed to bring that up. I was going to be after Dan got off. We say that.
Yeah, there we go.
But it was definitely check out islecollectibles.com. A lot of good slabs going on over there. That's how legit this guy is. We brought on. Nick and I are just doing our thing on eBay. This guy's got his own website, so.
I will also say though, I use Dan and Nick as a reference and inspiration for like my business card and business ideas. You guys are very helpful for like the forming of that idea.
I like it. Glad to hear.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no, it was a fun time.
Thanks for coming on.
Have a good night, everyone.
Feel free to leave, as always, comments, questions for the next podcast. We'll catch you all later.
See you later.
See ya.